Josep Solsona Batlle was a familiar face in the small town of Puigverd de Lleida. He was more than just a politician. He was a neighbor, a community member, and for a time, the leader of the town council. As mayor, he was at the center of local life, making decisions that affected everyone. People saw him at local events, walking the streets, and engaging with the daily rhythm of the municipality. His role placed him in a position of trust and responsibility, where his actions were meant to guide the town toward a better future. He represented the hopes and plans of those who had voted for him, carrying the weight of their expectations on his shoulders every single day he served. His time as mayor, however, came to an abrupt and difficult end. Politics, even at the local level, can be a battlefield of shifting alliances and power struggles. On July 1, 2024, Solsona found himself on the losing side of such a battle. A coalition formed by rival political parties, including the Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya and the Partit dels Socialists de Catalunya, decided it was time for a change. They presented a vote of no confidence against him, a formal procedure to remove a leader from office. When the votes were counted, Solsona had lost. He was no longer the mayor, a moment that surely marked a profound turning point in his life and career. This political ousting was a public and significant event for the town. It wasn't just a quiet resignation. It was a forceful removal driven by his political opponents. For any public servant, losing a position in this manner is a heavy blow, not just professionally but personally. It signals a loss of support and a rejection of one's leadership. For Solsona, this meant stepping away from a role that had defined a significant part of his identity in the community. The town watched as the political landscape shifted, leaving its former mayor to navigate a new and uncertain path, away from the town hall he had once led. The change in leadership created ripples throughout Puigverd de Lleida. When a mayor is removed through a vote of no confidence, it often leaves the community divided. Some residents may have supported the move, believing a new direction was necessary for the town's progress. Others likely remained loyal to Solsona, feeling that he was treated unfairly by political maneuvering. This division can create tension and uncertainty as people adjust to new leadership and wonder what the future holds. The event was not just a headline, it was a local drama that directly impacted the people who call Puigverd de Lleida home, setting the stage for more difficult times to come. Before he lost his position as mayor, Josep Solsona faced another deeply personal crisis that played out in the public eye. In March 2024, the community was shocked to learn that he had been arrested. The reason for the arrest was a serious one, an allegation of gender-based violence. This type of accusation carries immense weight, not just legally but also socially, especially for someone in a position of public trust. The news spread quickly, casting a dark shadow over his reputation and his political career. For a time, the focus shifted from his policies and leadership to this grave and personal legal matter that he now had to confront. In response to the serious nature of the allegation, his political party, Junts per Catalunya, took immediate action. As is often standard procedure in such cases, the party suspended his membership while the legal process unfolded. This decision was a political necessity for the party, aimed at distancing itself from the controversy until the facts were clear. For Solsona, however, this suspension meant that he was now politically isolated. He had to face the legal proceedings without the official backing of the party he represented, adding another layer of pressure to an already incredibly stressful situation. He was left to navigate the storm largely on his own. The legal system then began its work. The allegation was thoroughly investigated by the authorities to determine if there was enough evidence to proceed to a trial. This period of investigation is often long and arduous, filled with uncertainty for everyone involved. For Solsona, his future hung in the balance as he awaited the court's decision. After a comprehensive review of the case and the evidence presented, the court ultimately decided to dismiss the charges against him. The case was officially archived, meaning it was closed without a conviction. Legally, He was cleared of the accusation that had cost him so much. Despite the legal dismissal, the damage had already been done. An accusation, even when ultimately unproven, can leave a lasting mark on a person's life. The public nature of his arrest and the subsequent political fallout had already shaped perceptions. While the court cleared his name, the memory of the scandal lingered in the community and the political sphere. The entire ordeal, from the arrest to the party suspension and the court case, created a narrative that was difficult to escape. This chapter of his life was now closed by the courts, but its impact would continue to follow him long after the final ruling was made. On a somber Tuesday, July 29, 2025, the story of Josep Solsona reached its tragic conclusion. The 43-year-old former mayor was found dead, sending a wave of shock and sadness through the community he once led. The news was sudden and unexpected, leaving many people struggling to comprehend the loss. A life that had been so public, so intertwined with the fate of Puigverd de Lleida, had been cut short. The circumstances surrounding his death immediately became a matter of concern, and the community held its breath, waiting for answers about what had happened to their former leader, a man who had experienced so much turmoil in the preceding year. The Mossos d'Esquadra, the Catalan regional police force, were called to the scene to begin their investigation. Their task was to carefully examine the evidence and determine the cause of death, ruling out any possibility of criminal involvement. After their initial assessment, law enforcement officials reported that there were no signs of foul play or criminality. The evidence pointed toward a deeply personal tragedy. The authorities announced that they were treating the death as a suspected suicide, a conclusion that added a profound layer of sorrow to the already heartbreaking news. The official investigation would continue, but the initial findings painted a picture of immense personal despair. The confirmation that Solsona's death was likely a suicide cast the recent events of his life in a new, more somber light. The political removal, the public legal battle, and the suspension from his party were not just news stories anymore. They were now seen as immense burdens that he had been carrying. It is impossible for outsiders to know the true extent of someone's private suffering, but many in the community began to connect the dots between his public struggles and his tragic end. The weight of these events, one after another, appears to have been overwhelming, culminating in a final, desperate act that left a permanent void in the town. This tragic outcome serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of public life and personal hardship. Behind the political titles and the news headlines are real people dealing with immense pressure. Solsona's death was not just a political event, it was the loss of a son, a friend, and a neighbor. The police investigation provided a clinical explanation, but it could not measure the depth of the pain that led to this moment. For the people of Puigverd de Lleida, the loss was deeply personal, forcing them to reflect on the immense challenges their former mayor had faced in his final months. The official report closed a case, but it opened a period of deep and difficult mourning. The news of Josep Solsona's death fell like a heavy blanket over Puigverd de Lleida. In a small town where everyone knows each other, the loss was felt not as a distant news item, but as a personal blow. Friends, neighbors, and former constituents were left in a state of shock and disbelief. The streets that he once walked as mayor were now filled with a quiet sadness. People gathered in small groups, speaking in hushed tones, trying to make sense of the tragedy. The community, which had been a stage for his political rise and fall, was now united in a shared sense of grief for a life lost far too soon. Local politicians, including those who had been his political rivals, were quick to express their condolences. The current mayor of Puigverd de Lleida, Ursula Barrufet of Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya, publicly stated that it was a very sad day for the town and conveyed her deepest sympathies to Solsona's family and friends. Political differences were set aside as leaders from across the spectrum acknowledged the human tragedy of the situation. These statements reflected a moment of unity and mourning, a recognition that despite political disagreements, the loss of a community member is a sorrow that transcends party lines. It was a moment for compassion, not politics. The town council of Puigverd de Lleida declared an official period of mourning to honor their former mayor. This formal gesture symbolized the collective grief of the entire community. Flags were flown at half-mast, a visible sign of respect and sorrow for the man who had once held the town's highest office. This period of mourning provided a space for the community to come together, to reflect on Solsona's life and his contributions to the town, and to support one another through a difficult time. It was an acknowledgement that regardless of the controversies of the past year, he was one of their own. The tragic end of Josep Solsona will forever be a part of the history of Puigverd de Lleida. His story is a powerful and painful reminder of the pressures that come with public life and the devastating impact of personal and legal struggles. It has forced the community to confront difficult questions about politics, justice, and mental health. For the people of this small Catalan town, the loss is not just about a former mayor. It is about a neighbor whose public battles had a private cost that was ultimately too high to bear. His memory will now be linked to a call for greater empathy and understanding in both the public and private spheres.